It's all about matters of the heart. Hi, I'm NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson. Welcome to StationLIFE.
Tracy,
you have a go right now for that activity.
Thank you.
Okay, Tracy, we copy, and that's good information. We'll pass it along.
On today's show, our focus is going to be on matters of the heart, as they relate to good cardiovascular health. We'll take a look at how NASA is keeping our astronauts' hearts healthy off the Earth. And we'll also be looking at some research that's being done on board the International Space Station that can keep all of us healthy here on the Earth. Cardiovascular disease, including heart disease, stroke, and high blood pressure, is the #1 killer of men and women across America. Many studies have shown that healthy habits, including good nutrition and exercise, are most important for maintaining a healthy heart here on the Earth. Those habits are even more important for astronauts working and living on board the International Space Station. The cardiovascular system consists of the heart, blood vessels, and the approximate 5 liters of blood that gets pumped throughout the entire body. This system has the job of delivering oxygen and other nutrients to every cell in the body, plus removing waste from those cells. Living in space for 6 months changes our bodies in a number of ways. Without gravity, we lose bone mineral density, our muscles atrophy, and our cardiovascular system gets weaker. Some of our studies have shown that in space, the size and shape of our hearts may actually change, which could impact humans' ability to function well when we return back to Earth or even land on Mars. On Earth, our heart and blood vessels are well adapted to work against the downward pull of gravity. In space, however, there's a tendency for blood and other bodily fluids to accumulate in the upper body. Let's take a look at one of the consequences of this fluid shift.
We have recently identified that some astronauts experience changes in their vision, which might be related to the cardiovascular system. Our hearts pump blood around our body through blood vessels. Special adaptations in our bodies ensure that fluid is evenly distributed despite the pull of gravity. In space, astronauts no longer experience the downward pull of gravity, and the fluid in their bodies tends to move towards the upper body and the head. Our cranium is a rigid container. As the fluid moves towards the head, it causes the pressure inside the skull to rise. This is known as increased intracranial pressure. The optic nerve travels from the brain to the eye. The increased pressure from the cranium travels down the nerve and affects the eye. It causes the optic nerve to be squeezed, and the optic disc, where the optic nerve meets the eye, to swell. The back of the eyeball flattens as pressure builds behind it, and the blood vessels in the back of the eyeball also swell. These changes can affect the astronaut's vision. One change is that the astronauts become farsighted. The second change is that they can develop cotton wool spots, which represent damage of the nerve fibers in the back of the eye. These can cause discrete areas of vision loss. NASA is working to understand and prevent these changes in astronauts, which may also help us understand and prevent related vision changes here on Earth.
In space and on Earth, we have physicians that help maintain our health. Meet my good friend, Dr. Joe Schmidt. Joe.
Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning. Welcome to StationLIFE.
It's great to be here.
It's so great to have you. You know, Joe Schmidt was my flight surgeon when I was on board the International Space Station. But our relationship began way before that. Even before we started to be flight surgeon and crew member, we actually played in a band together. But more importantly, we started working together about 17 months before I actually launched into space through all my training and preparation for this mission. Joe, talk a little bit about what it's like to be a flight surgeon.
A flight surgeon, yes. For me, it's the best job on the planet. We get to take care of extremely healthy and fit individuals and allow them to go from the Earth to orbit. And orbit being a place that's vacuum with lots of radiation, and you're in microgravity. And we're going to ensure that you're going to stay healthy and fit throughout your mission.
And you're not just in a doctor's office or a clinic. You're also in mission control. And you're at the launch site. You're everywhere.
Well, that's true. And for the benefit of you being able to call me, Tracy will call me from orbit. And, you know, I have a special number on here that says ISS Tracy Caldwell Dyson is calling you. And I have to take the call from my patient. So it is the ultimate in telemedicine.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between, we have space medicine and we have traditional medicine. What makes space medicine so different?
So I'm a family practice physician by training, and then I had some additional training as aerospace medicine. And our job is basically to keep you healthy and keep you flying. So as we said, we're going to take you very healthy and fit, and we're going to expose you to the extremes of space and other environments. And we have to ensure that you are fit, your heart is fit, your bones are fit, your brain is fit, and your psychological evaluations are all good to go. So that's what we're going to do, take you to orbit.
Oh, and you did. You took really good care of me, Joe. I remember one of the most exciting and extreme things I got to do was a spacewalk or two, and there you were. You were with me through the whole thing.
It was exciting for me, too. I have a catbird seat, and that I'm in mission control monitoring your systems as well as your space suit system. So I monitor your EKG as you're doing your spacewalk. I monitor your suit systems to ensure that you have enough oxygen remaining, that your carbon dioxide hasn't built up, and I'm also listening to your voice to ensure that you're not getting overly fatigued and that you're doing well in your spacewalk.
You know, one of the things that drew us closer as well is some of the experiments that I did on orbit and others as well, where we're actually using remote guidance. Ultrasound techniques are one of the most common.
You are correct. You are our hands, eyes, and actually doing all the tests for us on orbit. So, of course, you've had the hours and hours of training, but you know exactly which angle to use for the heart, which angle to use for the carotids, the eyes. You studied your own body on orbit. You were the person doing all that sort of testing on yourself with the ultrasound.
Yeah, but I couldn't have done it if it weren't for you guys. They're in mission control, guiding me through it. That's one of the important relationships. We on orbit are the ones that are holding the probe. We're pushing the button. But it would be difficult to get the kind of results that we see, these very detailed images, very useful data, if it weren't for the expertise that we have, such as Joe sitting in mission control and our other investigators.
Well, it is important because we're taking you, we've studied you on the ground. We've studied your EKG, we've studied your echocardiogram, that ultrasound of the heart. We've studied the VO2 max, how much you actually breathe, how much oxygen your body uses while you're exercising. And why do we need to do that? We have to do it because we have to ensure that your body is still fit enough to continue for a 6-month mission, and you have to be fit enough to go out and do a spacewalk. And as we compare the data from on orbit to on the ground, we can say with surety that Tracy Caldwell Dyson's ready to go and do another spacewalk.
Awesome. On board the space station, one of the tools that we have to study heart health is the ultrasound device, which uses harmless sound waves to take detailed images of the inside of our bodies. These images have been viewed by doctors and researchers inside of mission control. So with minimal training on ultrasound, remote guidance techniques developed by NASA allow us astronauts to take detailed images of our own heart. In our next segment, we're going to travel to a small community in Brazil that has benefited from remote medicine techniques that were advanced by research on board the International Space Station.
Back on Earth, who can make medical decisions without actually being aboard the station. These same techniques have been adapted for use with portable ultrasound devices in communities where expert medical care is not always available.
Estamos em
Many problems.
Teve caso de uma paciente que estava com insuficiência respiratória grave.
That was the case of a patient who came to the hospital with severe respiratory failure, and the people realized she would die in just 20 to 30 minutes. We talked with Dr. Parzelli, who was training us to use the ultrasound. He came and applied the ultrasound and discovered large amounts of fluid around her lungs and heart. We performed the procedure and drained a lot of fluid. In 10 minutes, the woman immediately experienced an improvement, and in half an hour was already walking. It was like a miracle, a rise and walk. She was dying in front of us without people knowing what was happening. This ultrasound was instrumental in saving the life of that patient.
So now let's hear from some researchers who are studying the cardiovascular system off the Earth for the Earth.
But we're looking at a diverse number of cardiovascular parameters and how they change with spaceflight, and how changes in the heart function or the heart structure will affect the ability to do exercise, will affect the ability to stand after return to gravity, and what influence that might have on the generation of cardiac rhythm disturbances. We've learned that if you measure the change in the amount of work, heart work now, not physical work, but cardiac work, that's done in space versus on the ground, because the theory is that in space your heart is doing less work than it's doing on the ground. But if you measure that change in work, and then you can relate that directly to how much mass or how big or small the heart is in a change in cardiac mass. So we've verified that, and we've seen changes in heart size in the astronauts from pre-flight to post-flight. Then our secondary goals for the experiment are to look at those changes and see whether these reflect in changes in their ability to perform in an exercise regime, or their ability to perform in standing upright pre or post-flight, or does it relate to the generation of any cardiac rhythm disturbances. Well, we think it does have some applications to the Earth. Particularly, we've had for decades, NASA has used bed rest as an analog for spaceflight, particularly as it relates to the cardiovascular system. So this may have implications for those people who are otherwise relegated to sedentary positions, either because of injury or because of disease. Or there may indeed be some parallels between people who have heart failure and decreases in cardiac mass that we might see with spaceflight. So we're looking to make those kinds of analogies in the future as well. Well, you know, there's certainly a whole lot more people on Earth than there are in space. So if there are either equivalent situations on Earth that could help supplement our knowledge base for spaceflight, or conversely, if in order to prevent some of the changes we see in spaceflight, we develop certain countermeasures, these may be applicable as, I'll put in quotes, treatments in the clinical environment here on Earth.
So with all this exercise going on, is it really working? Well, researchers, along with the astronauts, strength, conditioning, and rehabilitation specialists, have made great progress. Before we had a full gym on board the International Space Station, astronauts needed quite a bit of recovery time when they came back home to Earth. But today, astronauts are coming back home in excellent health.
My name is Mark Williams. I'm the lead astronaut strength and conditioning coach. On board at the International Space Station, we have three pieces of hardware. We have a cycle, which we call CVIS. We have a treadmill, which is called T2, and we have a resistive exercise device, which is called ARED. And each device is specifically designed to do certain things for the astronaut. We try to do one of those particular devices every other day. One of them we're going to get a little bit better cardiovascular fitness out of it. The other one we get a little bit more impact loading, like running on the ground. So that affects muscle. It'll affect a little bit of bone, does things. Those are the physiological aspects of it. But then also making sure when they come home from a 6-month flight that they don't come home like a bowl of Jell-O. You know, they're going to lose muscle, they're going to lose strength, they're going to lose bone, they're going to lose cardiovascular fitness. But at the same time, then we have to take them, get them back to where they were before they left, which is what we do in our post-flight period once they come home for about 6 to 8 weeks, and just get them prepared back to normal life, you know, doing their job, doing their family, doing yard work, whatever that happens to be.
Being an educator today is not easy. We here at Heights Elementary School are not here simply to educate our students in the academic realm. It's so important for our students to be lifelong learners, and we have to think about ways that we motivate them to do so.
There are so many distractions that we have to compete with.
iPads, Xbox, video games,
internet.
Far too many channels of cable television.
What we need is something that kids will be highly motivated about, something to keep them physically fit as well as making nutritionally sound choices.
What we needed was a new tool to help these kids think about diet and exercise in order to make the healthy choices they need to.
I knew what that tool was. It was something that inspired me as a kid and continues to inspire me today. The space program.
The importance of an astronaut's physical exercise and proper diet cannot be understated, not just for the fitness of the astronaut, but also to ensure that they stay mentally focused and productive during their stay on the International Space Station and for future missions, whether it be to asteroids, the Moon, or Mars.
In response to the rising childhood obesity rate, NASA has developed a series of activities based on astronaut training, and we call that Train Like an Astronaut.
Examples of the Train Like an Astronaut activities include things that we do exactly as we do on the ISS: cycling, resistance training, and cardiovascular. And then onto dexterity, putting puzzles together, making healthy food choices, and working as a team. All activities as they truly do on the ISS.
Train Like an Astronaut activities are flexible enough to be used in conjunction with other programs like NFL Play 60. What makes this program unique is that we're using the human challenges of spaceflight to inspire as well as motivate our children to make healthy choices throughout their life.
We're currently in 24 countries with over 24,000 participants and growing every year.
This has expanded to such an incredible opportunity for both myself and for educators around the world to make such an impact on the lives of children, both with fitness as well as nutrition.
It was excitement for the whole thing that the students, they weren't just doing exercises anymore. They were training like an astronaut.
The true success of this program is the educators. An example of a teacher that has worked and motivated his children is an outstanding educator by the name of Tim Vigorito. This gentleman excited them and inspired them in ways that we never could do it. And with that, he's helping us grow the 21st century leadership that we so desperately need.
Mr. Vigorito is extremely passionate about the Train Like an Astronaut program.
I think he himself would like to be an astronaut.
He comes to life when he's teaching the kids and talking about the program. The kids feel that enthusiasm.
We're just so fortunate to have him. Oh, it's truly the case.
They say your astronaut training doesn't begin when NASA hires you.
Cool.
It begins when you're young, by learning about space and the world around us, and by making healthy choices in life. Today, I'd like to recognize an outstanding physical education teacher, Tim Vigorito, for being a champion for the Train Like an Astronaut program and influencing thousands of students to date. It is educators like you that truly make a difference in this world, and who will inspire the next generation to propel humankind on future missions to Mars and beyond.
This is too much. For me, it's become a way of life, and I'm just so thankful to everyone for what it's done for me. I just want to share that with my students. Maybe it'll inspire them to reach a little deeper or to go a little further or maybe to try a little harder, whatever it is in life.
As you can see, our International Space Station is an unprecedented research platform in space, allowing doctors and scientists to conduct experiments that can't be done anywhere else. For NASA, solving these problems are vital for continuing the journey off the Earth. Here on the Earth, as in space, the keys to good heart health are proper nutrition and vigorous exercise. Well, thanks for joining us on StationLIFE at our behind-the-scenes look at cardiovascular research being done on board the International Space Station. And be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest research news. And don't forget to download our new app on your mobile device. Until next time, we're working off the Earth for the Earth.